Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. February 21st is today, the 1st of Shaban this year. It is the anniversary of the assassination of one of the important leaders in the US, a Muslim leader. In 1965, he was assassinated in 1965, February 21st. His name is Malcolm X or Hajj Malik Shibaz, Malcolm X, um, a very brave leader, a very hard worker, um, a person of talent, a person of challenge, a person who, whenever he was satisfied with a cause, then he will sacrifice everything for that cause. Really, he's one of the geniuses of this century, of the previous century. A very important person who influenced the life of many people around the world, especially in the US. Malcolm X was a black person in the US. And if you don't know the history of blacks in the US, perhaps you know about slavery. They were brought from Africa. In 1863, there was the emancipation of slaves, the Proclamation of Emancipation by Abraham Lincoln. But the discrimination remained in the US because the slavery was based on discrimination, looking down at the blacks. So, what happened? The slavery ended, but the discrimination continued another 101 year until it was ended in 1964, just a few months after before the assassination of Malcolm X, and he is related to all of that conflict and the struggle of blacks in the U.S. He was born a black person to a black father who was a Christian, who was priest, pastor, but there was a discrimination. He was born in 1925. 1925, he was born. There was discrimination in the US, although his father was black, but that did not save him. He was a Christian. That did not save him from racist groups, white racist groups. So they threatened him, and they even burnt his house, his father. So he grew up in that environment. And his father was assassinated, actually. He was killed by white racists, although he was a Christian pastor, but that did not save him. Malcolm X grew up in that environment, hating racism and hating whites because of what happened. Um, but the problem is he did not grow up in a stable family, because after the killing or the assassination of his father, his mother tried to take care of him and his brothers. I guess they were 7 or 8, but she went crazy. Something happened to her. She cannot handle it. She broke down, and the kids were taken to shelters or relatives. So Malcolm X, as a kid, he was taken to a shelter, relatives. In the beginning, he did good in school until he reached like the 8th grade. But he was disappointed, and the discrimination was everywhere. Even when one time a teacher asked them about what are they going to be in the future, Malcolm X said he will be a lawyer, and the teacher tried to convince him that a lawyer is not good for the blacks. He should be a carpenter like Zachariah or something. So he dropped his school and he lost his interest in education, although he was, a good student. So what happened next? He was taken to one of his relatives, his older sister, but immediately he went to the street and he started living the life of street. The older he got, the more he was involved in the street life, stealing, drugs, smoking, adultery, fornication, gangster, everything like that was there. Um, he went to New York, and he continued his life until finally he was caught by the police when he was in his 20s, and he was jailed. Um, he was very angry, a person, unstable. His family was unstable. His condition was really very bad. So you can expect that that person was expecting or waiting for an opportunity to vent out some of his anger. And many like him of the blacks were waiting for that opportunity. And that opportunity came at the hand of someone who claimed to be a Muslim and a prophet. His name is Elijah Muhammad. Elijah Muhammad claimed to be a prophet and a Muslim who was sent by God. He means Farad Muhammad, or God appeared, closer to Christianity. Allah appeared, or God appeared in the image of Farad Muhammad, and he appointed him as a prophet. So Elijah Muhammad started preaching that, mm, like an authentic version of Islam, and he named his group Nation of Islam, Ummat al-Islam, Nation of Islam. So what happened while Malcolm X was in prison? That a group started in the 30s with Malcolm X, with Elijah Muhammad, started spreading more and more, and some of Malcolm X's siblings, sister and brother, they joined the Nation of Islam. Again, it is not Islam, it is not Sunni, uh, correct, orthodox Islam. It was a misguided group and misguided path. What happened next? They came to the prison one time to visit him, and they told him that we are following a new religion called Islam, and it is for the black, and it has weird ideas. Like the Nation of Islam spread weird ideas, not only about Elijah Muhammad as a prophet, and about God, that he came in the image of a person, but also it was a religion that was dedicated to blacks only. So Elijah Muhammad was a black. God, according to them, is a black. All the slaves who came from Africa, they were Muslims one time because a tribe called Shabazz went from Africa, I guess 300 or 400, like of that tribe, like knights, fighters, went to Muhammad. This is what they claim. And they gave him the Pledge of Allegiance and they became Muslims. Then they went back to Africa and the white man came and enslaved them. So Malcolm X was attracted to these ideas. Again, you remember his background, all of that discrimination, and he fell in that recess, reverse discrimination. So when a group was racist, the majority, of course, there were some whites who were against, like slavery, against all of that, uh, but Malcolm X was, like he fell in that reverse racism. So if blacks, if whites, like are racist, then he himself joined the Nation of Islam, became racist. And he was told that there is a prophet outside. He corresponded with him, and he was told that he should quit the smoking, gambling, drugs, alcohol, all of these things, because they were the tricks of whites to enslave them. So, to elaborate yourself and to emancipate yourself, you should quit alcohol and drugs and fornication and all of that. Um, Malcolm X now became very interested in this religion, and he started educating himself about that religion and about anything else. So, in the prison, he was in his 20s. He started reading, and he started reading. And when you say he started reading, he started reading very well. He read like the entire dictionary, he memorized it. He read philosophy, he read history, religions, like everything that he found in the library of the prison, he read. He educated himself very well. Remember that he was in the 8th grade, but his knowledge, really, he advanced in his knowledge very much. And he did not waste his time. The whole day he was reading, and even at night when they turn off the lights, he would take his book and come to the door of the cell, reading on the light of the hallway. But there is a guard that has to pass every hour to check on inmates. So what would happen, Malcolm X, when the guard comes and he hears the footsteps of the guard, he would go to his bed, close his book, go to his bed, pretends that he is sleeping. Then after he passes, then he goes and he reads go again. They say he memorized the entire dictionary. He improved himself very well. Not only that, he went to the debate groups in the prison and he started participating. So he developed a lot of his argument and debate and the speech skills. So communication skills became very good because he worked on himself very hard. Some of the crazy ideas that he believed in during that time, they misquoted the Quran. They misquoted the Quran. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ صَلْصَالٍ مِنْ حَمَإٍ مَسْنُونٍ. Allah created Adam from clay, dry clay, and it is of dark clay. The Messenger ﷺ tells us that Allah sent Jibreel and he collected dirt from all the earth, so white and black and red, and that dirt was mixed, and because of that, humans have different colors. Um, but when all of these colors are mixed, they are a little bit, inclined to be dark. So what Elijah Muhammad told them that Adam was black. There are some anthropological studies that the first human was in Africa. Some says, like it is in India. So he was black, and again, Allah black, Muhammad is black. According to them, listen to this, subhanallah, that contradicts with Islam. The white person was not created by Allah, but he was created by someone who was playing with genes in his lab. He was doing experiments or something. An evil guy called, like Job or something. Then he invented or he created the white people. So it was a very racist idea. But there was racism at that time from both sides. And this group, Nation of Islam, they would not accept any white person, even those who wanted to help them or want to convince them or talk to them. They would not, accept or to join them. They would not accept anyone. Just this is for the blacks. Elijah Muhammad, although he was not educated, I guess he studied, up to the fourth grade. This is the prophet who was claimed to be a prophet, but he was well organized and he was genius in organizing the Nation of Islam. According to some studies now and some of those who are familiar with it, he wanted to rescue blacks from the ghetto and the bad habits. Because of that, he told them that all of you are enslaved because of drugs, because of fornication, because of gangs, smoking, ganging, and he wanted to liberate them from all of that. So what happened? He organized also the Nation of Islam in a good way. He organized them like he wanted them to work together and to start their own businesses and to buy from each others to strengthen themselves, to marry from each others. And he did like many things for them. He taught them many things. And you can imagine when somebody comes to a group of people that the majority of them were not educated, then he offers them something, then people would consider, wow, this is a great prophet who came to rescue us from the mess that we are in. He authored books, even what to eat. He advised them and he gave advices, even what age to marry and how to choose the wife. He gave them a lot of things. And Malcolm X, when he came from the prison, he joined the group and he went immediately to meet this prophet, Elijah Muhammad, who misquoted the Quran different ways. And one of the ayat in the Quran, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن رَسُولٍ إِلَّا بِلِسَانِ قَوْمِهِ. We never send a prophet but in the tongue of his people. So he says, people here speak English, then I speak English, I am their messenger. Anyhow, he left the prison in 1952, Malcolm X. 1952, he left the prison, went to the prophet, and he started, to his prophet, Elijah Muhammad, and he started making da'wah, calling people. And he was very active. Remember his knowledge, remember his communication skills. He was amazing. And he started calling. And the number of blacks who joined the group in his time, especially between 1955 until like 1963, multiplied quickly. Malcolm X would go anywhere, any gathering for blacks, and start telling them that you are originally Muslims, your ancestors were Muslims, and you were forced to leave your religion, and etc. And among the things that at that time Elijah Muhammad and his group adopted is skipping their last name. So instead of having last name George or Andrew or Blacksmith or something, they would skip that and add X. So his name became Malcolm X. And when he was asked about that, you'll find some of his interviews on the YouTube. He was well eloquent. He was invited by media. He was invited by universities, like these big universities, Harvard, Berkeley, all of that. He would go there. Malcolm X was well educated, and he would explain, many of the things. So about X and why they are choosing the name X, he says, we don't know the original name of our ancestors, because when they were enslaved, the master gave them his name because they were his property. So we lost our ancestors in like lineage and name. Because of that, we put like X. We don't know it. So this is why they adopted like X. Anyhow, so he was very active, and because of that, Elijah Muhammad appointed him as the spokesman of the group. So he became the spokesman of the group, and he was very, very, very active. To the point that he was even became the second leader after Elijah Muhammad. He became the second leader at a young age, late 20s, beginning of 30s. Wow, he became the leader of one of the main leaders, and they gave him one of the main temples in New York, where he was assassinated in that area in New York, in Harlem area. I went to that area. So what happened? Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X, who was well eloquent, when there was a conference and people meeting him, like he was good in debating and arguing and etc. He promoted the idea. They promoted the idea that we need to separate from whites. Let us have some areas for us, or states for blacks, and whites, let them live, like by themselves. The separation was there. The separation was there. Like schools for whites and schools for blacks. Even stores, blacks should come from the back of the store, not from the front door. Fountains for white, water fountains for black. So they went extra step because of the discrimination. Again, reverse discrimination. This is, like if somebody is pressured so much, then he himself became racist. So he says, we don't want to live with white, and we want our own like states. Or the other solution is send us to Africa, but you have to help us because we came from Africa, and you need to send us back to Africa and to help us to prosper us and to live our life. Actually, some of the blacks, by the way, they went to Africa and they tried to establish their own state. So what happened? Malcolm X became very, very famous, and he was very active. He established a newspaper. He was very active, even in his basement, establishing like the newspaper, and he imposed it on the people that they must sell it and distribute it, and etc. He became very powerful. He became very powerful. And you can expect that when there are two strong heads or men in the same organization, and there are no clear rules, etc. So there was a kind of not sometimes when Malcolm X is not satisfied with everything that Elijah Muhammad did, he would talk to him, especially when he noticed that Elijah Muhammad had some affairs with, or he's married in secret to some of his secretaries. So there was a tension between the two. And when President Kennedy was assassinated in 1963, Elijah Muhammad advised his followers and Malcolm X not to meddle in this issue, not to interfere. However, in an interview, Malcolm X did not listen to his prophet. So when he was asked about it, about the assassination of Kennedy, he said a phrase that went viral, and everybody was angry from the white side, because the assassination of Kennedy was a shock. So Malcolm X said, chickens coming home to roost, chicken coming home to roost. And it means the violence that whites are doing to black is going to return to them. So it is like chicken coming home to roost. to lay eggs and roost. So he says, like, all of that is because of what you have done. And there was a tension now, and people became angry. And because of that, Elijah Muhammad, the prophet, the leader, uh, then he silenced him for 90 days. For 3 months, he should not appear in media. And I guess also not to give even public speeches in his even temple or mosque in New York, Harlem. So that was, like, a big division between the two men. And there was a tension even in America. By the way, Malcolm X, one of his speeches, he provoked a lot of people, even non-Muslims. He provoked, like, blacks, like Panthers and, like, Fruit of Islam and all of that, to because his ideas were a little bit, like, extreme. He would say that we will defend ourselves no matter what, and it is our right to defend ourselves. And when they ask him, are you going, like, to carry weapon, he says, no, we're not going, like, to carry weapon. And Elijah Muhammad is advising us that we should not, carry weapon. However, we will take any necessary means to defend ourselves. So his speech and rhetoric was a little bit, like, provocative to many people. It was encouraging to many blacks. It was a provocative, from other sides. So what happened? He did not like this being silenced, and kind of he lost his interest in Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam. He was advised, they say, by his sister and a brother to go and make Hajj, and he decided to go to Hajj. Uh, when he arrived, flying, of course, when he arrived in Al Qahira, Cairo, in Egypt, he began to see different Islam than what he had. He started seeing people from different backgrounds, people who are white, Muslims who are white, Muslims who speak Arabic, Muslims who pray something different than his prayers. The prayer of Nation of Islam was to sit on chairs 5 times a day and to face Mecca, but there is no ruku and sujood, not our prayer, our salah. They would reflect on the Elijah Muhammad and Farad Muhammad. The God appeared in the image of Farad Muhammad, white person. They say he came originally from somewhere, Afghanistan or somewhere. Anyhow, so this is, like, their prayers. And fasting was to be done in not in Ramadan. It should be in December when the day is very short and it is cool. So that was, like, some of the ideas. When he arrived in Cairo, he noticed that people are praying, and they are coming from different, like, backgrounds, coming white, Caucasians, and Europeans are coming as Muslims going to Hajj, and blacks, Africans. Like, he started wondering what kind of Islam. Anyhow, he continued his journey to Saudi Arabia, and he arrived in Jeddah airport, but he got stuck because they did not believe that he was a Muslim. His name is Malcolm X. How come you are coming to Mecca? You must be a Muslim. He showed them a letter that he is a Muslim, but it was in English, and the translator was not there. Okay. So he got stuck in the airport, and he sat, and he started seeing Muslims doing salah, and he joined them. And he started reflecting. This is among his diaries, because he dictated his diaries before his assassination. So much of what is mentioned here is, like, his diaries. So he says, like, I am one of the leaders of Muslims in America, yet I don't know how to perform my salah. What else? Muslims were nice to him, and they would share their food with him. Now we are talking about Muslims who are white, Caucasians. His previous knowledge says that they are created, like, by devil, and they are not, like, Muslims, and etc. And now he's seeing something different. He's seeing, like, Muslims coming from background, and they are Arabs, and if Muhammad is from that area, then he should look like them. So that Muhammad is a black did not make sense to him. So he started reflecting on the previous teachings. There is a funny, like, teaching that, they were convinced with it for a while. There is an ayah in in the Quran, Surah Taha, that وَنَحْشُرُ الْمُجْرِمِينَ يَوْمَئِذٍ زُرْقًا. that the mujrimin, the criminals, on the day of judgment will be gathered blue faced. Blue faced. Okay. What Elijah Muhammad taught them, that anyone whose eyes are blue is going to be in the hellfire just by default, because his eyes, are blue, then he has to go, which is wrong. So Elijah Muhammad told them that, and they were convinced. While the ayah means blue faced means like somebody is stressed, lack of oxygen, etc. Up to now in colloquial English, you say somebody is feeling like blue means like he's very sad, like he's stressed, etc. So the criminals, like on the day of judgment, it is a metaphor. It is not a real color. It is a metaphor that somebody like blue face means like he's exhausted, he's tired, he's stressed, he's fearing, etc. Even in Arabic language, we say when somebody gets like scared, we say like, oh, his eyes became blue, زرقوا عينيه or something. So what happened? He started reflecting more and more on the ideas of the nation of Islam. Anyhow, he got stuck in the airport. What to do? He remembered that he met one time an Arab Muslim in America, and that one gave him a number, and he told him that my son is in Saudi Arabia. If you need help. So he said, I'm stuck here. I cannot go anywhere. He got the number. Luckily, it was with him. So he got the number and he called the person. And his name was Omar. He's from Egypt. He was in charge of the construction of the Haram. He's an Egyptian engineer, Muslim. So Malcolm X called him and he told him that, I am here and I am Malcolm X. I met your father. And he told me, if you need anything, you can call my son Omar. So he said, okay, I'll come to you. And immediately he speaks English. So he came to Malcolm X and he talked to people. He was known like engineer, like in charge of the Haram. He has some connections. He pulled some strings. Anyhow, so he took Malcolm X out of the airport. And because he doesn't have anywhere to go, he offered him his suite in a hotel. So give him his room, his section, like in the hotel. And Malcolm X like, wow, this is like a white person who's treating me as a brother, as a Muslim, and he's offering me his hotel, room, and he's welcoming me, and etc. He started like wondering more and more. Then that person, his sister, was married to one of the princes. Omar's sister was married to one of the princes, son of King Faisal. Everybody knows King Faisal of Saudi Arabia. Okay, so he contacted them and he says, this is a Muslim leader coming from America. Now nobody, like he got stuck in the airport, nobody can help him. So what happened? King Faisal, rahimahullah, he sent his own son, and he sent many people, entourage, to welcome Malcolm X and to consider him, and he was considered the guest of Saudi Arabia. And you can see now the difference, the respect that he got there in Saudi Arabia when he was going to Hajj, and the respect that he did not have, or he did not see, at least in America, his own country. He was born in America, he's American citizen and all of that, but still there was discrimination. While in Saudi Arabia, just for the first time, they welcomed him as a Muslim leader, etc., and they took him into Hajj. Now the Hajj was the changing, or the last straw that broke the camel's back. So it was the last step when he changed completely. In Hajj, he saw all people are equal. Muslims coming from China, from Russia, from India, from Africa, from Turkey, from the Middle East, from everybody, like all of them were Muslims coming together. All of them are equal, especially men when they are wearing like the white towel around them. Nobody's wearing a hat. Everybody's wearing a slipper. All of them are equal. All of them are the same. So Malcolm X at that time realized that the solution to all of that discrimination that he has in the US is Islam. And he wrote a letter to his wife. At that time, he changed his name to Hajj Malik Shabazz. And he told her that the solution for the discrimination in America and the world is Islam. The real brotherhood is in Islam. Earlier, one time he was interviewed, or he was asked, like why some Christians are becoming Muslims, especially from the blacks. And he said, what is taught in church on Sunday doesn't come into practice, or is not a practice or implemented on Monday what is taught in church on Sunday is not. So all of that equality and love, he did not see. His father was a pastor, and he was, killed, and their house was burned, and his mother went crazy, and his family, fell apart. So he had a lot of heritage and a lot of things that pushed him more and more towards Islam. So what happened? He changed his views, and he announced that he will be a Sunni Muslim, and he became active again. He became active again in two ways. Number one, he went back to the US now a few months before his assassination. Okay, a few months before his assassination. Number one, establishing a masjid, a Sunni masjid, and calling for Sunni Islam. Number two, he started also a new organization for the blacks that will include Muslims and non-Muslim blacks, and it will allow even whites who want to join him. So he became less, no discrimination now. Even whites can he join. And he started contacting in that trip or other trips. He visited some of the Muslim and non-Muslim leaders of the world. Like he met Jamal Abdel Nasser, the president of Egypt. He met, like Faisal Husseini, the Mufti of Al Quds and Palestine. He met some. He went to Nigeria. He went to to other African countries, and he started like lobbying in politics. Again, he is a person. He started lobbying and saying that all black nations should get together and pressure America in the United Nations. Like that man, like wow, what he's doing. So he's like motivating like black leaders around the world and Muslim leaders. Girl, you have to go and stand against America to stop its discrimination. So internationally and locally, he started working in both ways. And this is, like one of the things when Malcolm X became extra danger to many people, the Nation of Islam, and even to other, racist group, or nobody knows up to now, who assassinated him. Some of his followers and the blacks, they say it was, American agencies who hired some blacks and they assassinated him. While the FBI investigations, indicate that it was blacks, like some members of the Nation of Islam who assassinated him because he became like a threat to the Nation of Islam. Anyhow, he came back and he became very active now, and he started receiving threats. And he did not stop. He continued his life until one day he had a lecture in a ball, in like a hall in New York, Harlem, north of New York City, Manhattan. And three people were sitting among the audience, and they made some noise to distract people. Then they shot him in front of his wife and two or three of his daughters who were sitting there in front of them. 1965, in February 21st, 1965. They shot him, and they came even close range, and they shot him, like many bullets until he was killed. Who killed him? They say Nation of Islam members. Nation of Islam say no. Nowadays, one of the Nation of Islam's leaders, so Louis Farrakhan, he says no, and him and his followers, they say no. It was, the American government, etc. Malcolm X was a very controversial like figure, and he influenced the American culture in different ways. Uh, his like assassination influenced many people, and even the Nation of Islam changed after that. What happened? Just back to the Nation of Islam, Ummat al-Islam. The leader died in the 70s, Elijah Muhammad, and his son Warith Din Muhammad took over. And after 3 years, in 1978, he announced that all Muslim blacks will follow the Sunni path. And Warith Din Muhammad continued until, I guess, he died in 2008. 2008, he died recently, the last 21st century. So he converted people, blacks, to Sunni, and I met some of the previous members who became Sunni Muslims, and they are like us, alhamdulillah, worshiping the same, following the footsteps of Prophet Muhammad, believing in the same tenets. However, a small group from the Nation of Islam under the leader of Louis Farrakhan, Minister Louis Farrakhan, he's very old now, Louis Farrakhan. broke away and held to the principles of Elijah Muhammad, and still they are holding it to it. They are changing a little bit, I guess. They pray Jum'ah now and they do fasting in certain ways, but still they have some of the old ideas. They believe that the mission of Elijah Muhammad should continue. So you might be traveling one day and you meet some of the Elijah Muhammad's, like followers, like here and there, like. Originally, it was based on a previous black group, by the way. Drew Ali. He started in New York, Drew Ali. And now it is a long story. Before Elijah Muhammad, there was a person who claimed that he was appointed by a king from the Middle East, from Morocco or somewhere, to call the blacks to Islam. So these ideas have some origins, from somebody before Elijah Muhammad. You heard about Martin Luther King. What is the difference between Malcolm X and Martin Luther King? Now, a lot of fame is for Martin Luther King, right? And the assassination, date is, like a day off in the US, and he is honored in different ways. He was a Christian, and he was a peaceful person, a person of peace, who said, let us assimilate, let us get together, let us live together. And he has the famous speech, I have a dream, when he said that, I have the dream of our children and white children, blacks and then white, be together. So he was pushing for the peaceful path when everybody will get together in the US. Okay. On the other side, Malcolm X was not a Christian. He was a Muslim, number one. And number two, his approach was to, like, we want to separate. We don't want to assimilate. We want to separate. This is, like Malcolm X. He wanted to separate. He wanted blacks to defend themselves. Whatever is necessary to take. This is what he said. Like, what is necessary, like, we have to take. And they say, like, to fight using weapons. He said no, but we have to defend our wives. We have to defend our sisters, and we should not allow any, like, white police to beat them, etc. So his approach was a little bit, harsh, while Martin Luther's, approach was more peaceful. If you are familiar with literature, there is, a novel called Uncle Tom's Cabin. Uncle Tom's Cabin. There, in that novel, it was written against slavery, and it was written by a Christian. And the main character, Uncle Tom, he was a slave who was a believer in the Bible, and he was very peaceful. Although he was beaten, he was all of that, but he remained peaceful. So this is, like, Uncle Tom. Malcolm X did not like that, and he would even sometimes make fun of Martin Luther indirectly. He would say, like, Uncle Tom, like, approach. Sometimes he was eloquent. Remember that he was eloquent, and he was good in literature and philosophy. He did everything. Sometimes he would compare him to the slaves. Malcolm X would compare Martin Luther to slaves who are working in the house in the previous slavery, like, era. And he used the N word, like, to describe, like saying, like, that he's like slaves who are working in the house, who love their masters, while I am, like, he said, quote unquote, it is Malcolm X, like, I am a field Negro. This is the N word, for those who are not familiar with it. So this is what he said: I am the one who is working in the field and who doesn't love his master, and he would prefer to separate and to run away and not to be assimilated. So his approach was harsh. And perhaps, this is my personal analysis, I'm not sure if maybe some people already, talked about it, that his approach expedited the process for the assimilation and to solve the issue of slavery, because many whites, I'm sure that, they were thinking about, okay, which approach you would like to take, the peaceful one of Martin Luther, who said, let us assimilate, or the other one, which is Malcolm X, a Muslim, and he wanted to separate and to defend, and he's provoking and all of that. So actually, maybe Martin Luther got, like, some, what you call it, he benefited from that pressure Malcolm X was doing that pressure, and it benefited maybe Martin Luther in some ways and expedited the process. Maybe there was a delay and still, but all of that, there was a lot of movements, and all of that civil rights, movements in the 60s, they were working, and Malcolm X was amongst them. However, now February is the month of African Americans. February, we are in African American, and perhaps this is to honor Malcolm X in indirect way, because he was assassinated in this month. May Allah Subhanahu wa Taala have mercy on him. May Allah Subhanahu wa Taala forgive his shortcomings. May Allah Subhanahu wa Taala reward him. He influenced the Muslims. He influenced blacks. He helped them. A person who suffered a lot in his life, and that came in different ways, flashing back, until he finally became a Sunni Muslim, and he tried, to help in different ways. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on all Muslims who died, and have mercy, inshallah, on all of us, and forgive our shortcomings and their shortcomings. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.